Now with your elevations, all right, as you'll notice, obviously we have our 4 major ones that are automatically created for us, right? And if we look at them in our floor plans here, right, you'll notice them here that are created. Okay, so you have your little elevation box and the elevation triangles, right? The little triangles on the sides of them denote that there's a view created for it. Okay, so if we go to our east, back to our east, right, in our elevation views, right? For the most part, these settings are going to be exactly the same as our plans, all right, and our reflected ceiling plans, right? The only difference is that instead of a view range, is they use what's called far clipping, okay, and far clipping and basically depth clipping, okay. Now, if we think of this as our east elevation, okay, so if we go back to our floor plan, that'd be this guy here, right? That's our east elevation, right? If you select that little arrow, right, you can see east, all right. Now the elevations work a little bit differently, all right, than the floor plans. Is they still kind of work on the same idea of a box, all right, but they don't have like a cut plane or anything like that necessarily. Is what they do is they work on the depth of view. So if you clicked on this little triangle for the east here, right, you'll see that you have this line that comes across here, all right. This line that comes across basically denotes where you're standing at when you're looking at this view. All right, so if you're quote unquote standing here at this line, right, you're looking this way in this direction. All right, what this line is called, it's called the clip plane. Okay, so the clip plane is basically where you're standing um, for your elevation. Now, what happens from time to time is people tend to forget where these elevation markers are. All right, and so they'll build these buildings so large that you know maybe your wall kind of encompasses one of these elevation views. So if you click on that elevation, you can see that the line actually goes through it, right? So when you actually go to this view, it's actually going to look more like a section than it will an elevation view. And you might look at it and say, wow, what's going on here, right? Chances are, if you're in an elevation view and it looks like that, is go back and check to see where that actual elevation is and where the clip plane is, right? Because you may have to go and kind of click and drag your elevation back out of it, right, so that it's outside of the wall, right, because that clip plane might be inside your building as opposed to outside your building, right? So just kind of keep that in mind. Not only, if you're making a large building, but not only after the fact, but kind of keep that in mind as you're building, to kind of go ahead and move those elevations back ahead of time, so that way you don't accidentally get it stuck inside and then you can't figure out why your elevation looks like a section, right? Okay. So aside from just the clip plane, right, as I mentioned, which is where you're standing, okay, is the way that the elevations work is they work similar to your plan view, in which you can decide the depth at which you're looking at it as, right, and it uses what's called depth clipping. So if we look at, our elevation, right, is right now we're basically standing at that spot, and we're looking off into infinity here, right? And basically it keeps going on and on. So whatever is way back here, we're going to see it. Okay. What you can do, all right, is if you scroll down here, as you see far clipping, all right, if you click on this, all right, as you can tell Revit to say, okay, I want to clip this, right, clip with line, clip with outline, depending on whether or not you want to see an outline of where it got clipped. Remember, if you hit OK, depending on the distance here, it might offset it. But what it is you have an offset now from that clip line. So if you said 30 feet, right, if you set this distance now to 30 feet, apply, right, that's still not enough. If I look at it in a plan view, all right, I select that view. Okay, so we still have the clip plane back here, all right? You can see this dash line now. Basically, that's the clip plane, or I'm sorry, the depth clip that we're looking at. So basically, you're now looking at an elevation view from this line to that line, right? And in a plan view, you can drag it. So basically, anything in between this area here is what you're looking at. So for some reason you had, this wall extended down kind of past like this, all right, as you probably wouldn't, necessarily need to see that wall there. But if you change the depth clip, all right now, if you look at that view, all right, you can't see that wall. But if we were to go and change the depth of where that is, so it's all the way back, all right, now when we go to that elevation, all right, you can see that wall off in the distance, all right, so you can kind of see the inside of that wall. So again, that's kind of how the elevation works, all right. So instead of using a cut plane and all of that, all right, we're instead using um, the depth clipping option, all right, with our elevations. All right, so now that's it for elevations. All right, so again, just kind of keep in mind where your clip plane is. All right. Aside from the settings for the elevations, all right, if you wanted to create additional elevations, you go to the View tab and come here to Elevation, all right, where it says Elevation there. All right, as you can see that it's going to want to go and place another box, right, for an elevation view. And you can see that as you come closer to a wall, all right, it automatically makes itself kind of perpendicular to it. All right, so you can go and place an additional elevation for it, and it'll automatically go point itself in the right direction. All right, if you wanted to make interior elevations, all right, so again, you can go and bring it towards the walls on the inside as well. All right, and when you do place them on the interior of your building, Revit will automatically go and kind of crop and kind of shape the size of the elevation for you. All right, you can see here this one's on an angle. If we wanted to do this wall here, all right, if we wanted to click, all right, that'll create an elevation there. If we want to create a couple of interior elevations here, we can click, all right, and place that block there. All right, so for instance, you can see that this elevation, all right, if we click on it, it already goes and kind of crops our view so that we can only see that inside wall that we're looking at, right? So that's the interior elevation of it. All right, it's already cropped out from side to side, all right? So we only see that one wall, all right? So that's kind of nice when Revit does that for you, all right? In this case, this one's on the diagonal, so we can see that diagonal wall, all right? But what's nice is if you go to create an interior elevation like this, instead of placing 4 of these boxes, all right, so let's say this was an enclosed room and we wanted to create an elevation of all of these sides, all right, let's say for a bathroom or a kitchen or anything like that. Once you place the box once, right, if you click on the box now, you'll notice that you have check boxes on either side, all right, so you can actually go and click on this checkbox, right, and as you click on every one of these check boxes, right, that makes a new view. So, for instance, if we now scroll down, right, you can see all these elevation views that we have here. So, right, so elevation 1A, right, happens to be this guy here, I believe. All right, this was the first one that was created, right, elevation 1, or I'm sorry, that's elevation 2. All right, that one there's 1D, right, this one C, right, 1B, and that one happens to be 2A. All right, so you don't need to go and place 4 of these boxes right in the same place and have them all look at the separate walls, right? You can place a box one time in the middle of a room and then click these check boxes here and it'll automatically go and create these views for you, all right? So it's kind of nice when that happens. That way you don't have to go and individually create, all these different interior elevations for yourself, all right? Kind of a nice, quick, easy way Revit automatically does it. Now, if you're clicking on an individual one of these views, or you click on the box itself and uncheck it, right, it'll actually tell you that you're deleting that elevation view, all right? So if for some reason you don't need that view anymore, you can do that, okay?